A billionaire goes to a church and sees a poor girl on her knees holding a note. She says, "This is my last prayer to save my mother." He reads the note and bursts into tears. Ethan Marlowe woke up to the sound of rain tapping against his bedroom window. 2 years, 3 months, and 17 days. That was exactly how long it had been since Rachel passed away. He knew because he kept count. Every morning, the first thing on his mind was that relentless tally that refused to stop. The room still smelled like her perfume. Ethan never had the courage to wash the sheets on the side of the bed where she used to sleep. Her hairbrush still sat on the vanity, with a few strands of blonde hair clinging to the bristles. The red lipstick she wore on Sundays remained open on the dresser. At 30 years old, Ethan had built an empire. Marlowe Industries was synonymous with success, technology, and innovation. Forbes had listed him among the youngest billionaires in the country. He had everything money could buy: imported cars in the garage, a lakeside mansion, investments growing on their own. But none of that mattered since she was gone. He went downstairs to the kitchen and made coffee for one. Before, he always made coffee for two. Rachel loved her coffee strong, with a spoonful of sugar and a sprinkle of cinnamon. "Just like you," she used to say with a laugh, "strong but with a special touch that makes all the difference." The doorbell rang 3 times before he decided to answer it. On the other side was Margaret, his longtime executive assistant, holding a stack of documents. In her early 50s, her grey hair was always pinned in a perfect bun, and her reading glasses hung from a gold chain around her neck. "Mr. Marlowe, you need to sign these contracts today. The meeting with the Japanese investors is tomorrow and—" "Cancel everything," Ethan interrupted. "Not today." Margaret sighed. For the past 2 years, that had become his standard response to any commitment. The company ran on autopilot, managed by a competent team that had learned to make decisions without him. "Sir, with all due respect, Mrs. Rachel wouldn't want to see you like this." Ethan closed his eyes. Margaret had worked with them for 10 years. She knew Rachel. She knew what she was like. And she was right. Rachel always loathed it when he isolated himself for work. "Life happens while you're busy making other plans," she used to say. "Leave the papers on the desk. I'll sign them later." "Did you at least have breakfast? Should I cook something?" "I'm fine, Margaret. Thank you." Lie. He hadn't been fine for 2 years, 3 months, and 17 days. After Margaret left, Ethan stood in the entryway of the house. The rain had stopped, but the sky remained grey. It was the kind of day Rachel loved. She would say that overcast days were perfect for reflection. "On days like this, we can think without rush," she used to say, wrapped around him on the living room sofa. "No sun to distract us, no hurry to go anywhere. It's like the world pauses just so we can breathe." Without knowing why, Ethan grabbed his car keys. St. Mary's Church sat downtown in a neighborhood Ethan rarely visited. Rachel had attended there since she was a child. When they were married, she'd tried several times to get him to come along. "It's not about religion," she would explain patiently. "It's about community. About sitting in a place where everyone is equal, where it doesn't matter how much money you have or what car you drive." Ethan always found an excuse. A big meeting, a business trip, anything that sounded more urgent than sitting on a wooden pew for an hour. "One day you'll want to come with me," she said once, smiling in that way that made his heart race. "And when that day comes, I'll be waiting." She wasn't there waiting anymore, but maybe it was time to go. The church parking lot was almost empty. Only 3 cars, older models showing their wear, a Honda Civic with peeling paint, a 15-year-old Ford pickup, and a Toyota Corolla that had seen better days. Ethan stepped out of his BMW and looked up at the modest brick building before him. Red brick walls, stained glass windows depicting biblical scenes, and a wooden cross above the main entrance. A small, well-tended garden framed the doorway. It wasn't grand. It didn't cost millions like the cathedrals he'd visited on business trips around the world. But there was something about it Rachel loved, something he never understood. The door creaked as he pushed it open. Inside, the space was small and welcoming. Polished wooden pews lined up in rows, a simple altar adorned with fresh flowers, and candles flickering in the corners casting a soft, golden glow. The scent of wax and lilies lingered in the air. Ethan took a few hesitant steps down the center aisle. His Italian leather shoes clicked against the wooden floor. Everything here was different from his world. No luxury, no ostentation, just honest simplicity. That's when he saw her. A little girl knelt before the altar. No more than 6 years old, her disheveled brown hair fell over her thin shoulders. She wore a faded pink t-shirt with a barely visible butterfly print and a denim skirt that had once belonged to someone bigger. Her white sneakers had holes on the sides, and the laces were tied in double knots to keep them from coming undone. In her small, delicate hands, she held a crumpled piece of paper as if it were the most precious thing in the world. Ethan stopped in his tracks and watched her. The girl spoke in a soft voice, but in the quiet church, her words carried like whispers full of pain and hope. "God, please listen to me again. I know I prayed yesterday and the day before, and every day this week, but my mum is getting so much worse. She can barely get out of bed now. The lady next door said she needs expensive medicine, but we don't have money for even a carton of milk." The girl's voice trembled, but she continued, "I don't want to be alone. She's all I have in the whole world. Please, God, do something. I promise I'll be the nicest girl if you help her. I promise I won't complain when there's no food at home. I promise I won't cry when I'm cold. Just don't let my mommy go away." Ethan felt something tighten in his chest in a way he hadn't felt in years. There was such sincerity in those words, such pure, innocent faith. The same faith he'd lost the day Rachel closed her eyes forever, when all the doctors, treatments and prayers failed to save her. The girl stood up slowly, still holding the note carefully. When she turned, her eyes met Ethan's. They were brown, too big for her small face. There was no fear in that gaze, only a deep sadness no child should carry, and a determination that was astonishing. They stared at each other for a few seconds. Ethan wanted to say something, but the words refused to come. How could he explain to a child that the world is sometimes too cruel? How could he tell her that prayers aren't always answered? The girl walked toward him with small but determined steps. "Did you come to pray too?" she asked, with the casual ease only children have when talking to strangers. Ethan nodded, unable to speak. "I pray here every day," she continued, looking around as if the church were her home. "My mom is so sick, and I don't know what else to do. I tried to help her, but I'm too little." She extended the crumpled note toward him, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "This is my last prayer to save my mommy." Ethan took the note with hands that shook slightly. The paper was damp, maybe from tears, maybe from the rain outside. It bore small fingerprints and was folded several times, as if it had been read and reread. The handwriting was that of a child, crooked letters written in purple crayon. "Dear God, my name is Ellie and I am 6 years old. My mommy, Monica, has been very sick for 3 weeks. She coughs a lot and has a fever and can't get out of bed. The lady next door said she needs to see a doctor right away, but doctors cost money and we don't have a single penny. Please God, I beg you on my knees, save my mommy. I promise I will share my snack at school every day and help clean the church every Sunday if you make her well. I promise to be obedient and not give anyone trouble. Please don't let her die. I only have her in the whole wide world. Without her, I will be all alone, and I am very scared. If you can't make her well, please at least don't let her hurt too much. She moans in pain all night and I don't know how to help. Ellie Dawson P.S. If there's a way to send an angel to take care of her, I would be so grateful." Tears came without warning. Ethan hadn't cried since Rachel's funeral. For 2 years, he had locked himself behind a wall of pain and anger, refusing to feel anything but emptiness. But there, reading those words written by little hands, everything he'd held back collapsed at once. Silent tears streamed down his face as he read the note a second time. The crooked handwriting, the misspellings, the innocent promise to share her snack, the desperate plea for God to send an angel, all of it broke him in a way he never expected. "You're crying," Ellie observed, her voice free of judgment. She stepped closer and gently touched his hand. "My mommy always cries when she's in too much pain. Are you in pain too?" Ethan wiped his eyes with the back of his hand and handed the note back. His voice was hoarse. "I am, little one. I lost someone very important to me some time ago." Ellie nodded with a wisdom that didn't suit her age. "I know how that is. When my daddy left last year, I cried a lot too. But my mommy said sometimes people leave, but the love they left behind stays right here, she said, pointing to her chest. It still hurts sometimes, but that love never goes away. She took the paper back and folded it carefully, as if it were a treasure. Do you think God will hear my prayer? I pray here every day, but sometimes I wonder if he's listening. Ethan looked at that little girl with eyes full of hope and desperation, and felt something inside him that he hadn't felt in 2 years. A desire to act, a need to do something, a purpose. I think he will, he replied, and for the first time in a long time, he wasn't completely lying. Ellie smiled, the first real smile Ethan had seen in years. It was a smile that lit up her face despite all the sadness. Thank you for reading my letter. Sometimes it helps when someone shares the sadness with you. It feels a little lighter. She turned and walked toward the exit, her small steps echoing in the quiet church. At the door, she stopped and looked back one last time. I hope you feel less sad. I bet the person who left you didn't want to see you crying so much. The door closed softly, and Ethan was left alone with his thoughts and tears. The drive home was a blur. Ethan drove on autopilot, his mind still processing the encounter in the church. Ellie's words echoed in his head. I bet the person who left you didn't want to see you crying so much. Rachel really hated seeing him sad. Even in those last days at the hospital, when she could barely speak, she would hold his hand and whisper, "Smile for me, love. Your smile was always my favorite thing in the world." The house greeted him with its usual silence. 45 rooms, a prime lakeside view, imported furniture from Italy and France, everything top of the line, everything expensive, everything empty. Ethan poured himself a glass of whiskey, a 25-year-old Macallan that cost more than most people's annual salary. But the bitter taste in his mouth didn't come from the drink. He sat in the leather armchair where he and Rachel used to unwind after hard days at work. She would snuggle up next to him, her bare feet resting on his legs, telling him about her day while he massaged her shoulders. How was work today? She would always ask. Better now that I'm home, he would always reply, and it was true. All the success, all the money, all the achievements only mattered because someone was waiting for him at home. Someone who cared about the man, not the billionaire. He closed his eyes and saw Ellie's note again. The crooked handwriting, the desperate plea, the innocent promise to be good forever. The P.S. asking for an angel. He remembered when Rachel was sick. The best oncologists in the country. Experimental treatments in Switzerland. Medications that cost more than luxury cars. He had spent fortunes trying to save her. He moved mountains, called in favors, used all of his influence. Nothing worked. All the money in the world couldn't buy another day with Rachel. But maybe he could give Ellie's mother a chance. The question struck his mind like lightning. Could I change someone's fate now? For the first time in 2 years, Ethan Marlowe felt something beyond pain and emptiness. He felt purpose, a reason to act, a chance to do something that truly mattered. Outside, the wind swayed the trees in the garden Rachel had planted with so much care. Inside the house, for the first time in a long while, Ethan did not feel completely alone. He had a little girl to find, and a mother to save. Ethan couldn't sleep that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Ellie's face. Those big brown eyes too big for her age, her trembling voice begging God not to let her mother die. The words written in purple crayon, I only have her in the whole wide world. At 5 in the morning, he gave up trying to rest. He showered, put on a pair of jeans and a simple t-shirt, clothes he hadn't worn in years. It made no sense to show up in that neighborhood wearing an Italian suit and shoes that cost more than most people's rent. Margaret arrived promptly at 8, as she had for the past 10 years. Mr. Marlowe, you look different today. Cancel all my appointments this week, Margaret. But sir, the meeting with the Japanese investors? Cancel everything, Ethan repeated, grabbing the car keys. And Margaret, if anyone asks where I am, tell them I'm tending to personal matters. Margaret watched him walk toward the garage with a mix of concern and hope on her face. It was the first time in 2 years she'd seen her boss in a hurry to leave the house for something other than work. St. Mary's Church was empty when Ethan arrived. The same silence as yesterday, the same golden light filtering through the colorful windows, but today something felt different. Today he wasn't there to escape his pain, he was there to find someone. He walked to the altar where he'd seen Ellie the night before. The place still held the energy of the little girl, as if her desperate prayers were lingering in the air. He waited for an hour, then 2. Ellie didn't show up. An elderly man entered to light some candles. Ethan approached him. "Excuse me, sir, do you know of a little girl who comes here to pray?" "Brown hair, about 6, named Ellie." The man smiled kindly. "Oh, little Ellie. She comes here almost every day, poor thing. She lives over in the community, across the bridge. Her mother is very sick, she told me." "Do you know exactly where?" "I don't know the address, but it's easy to find. It's one of the simplest houses, right at the end of Main Street. The girl always stops by Mr. Joe's bakery when she comes this way." Ethan thanked him and left. For the first time in 2 years, he had a clear goal. The community was only a 15-minute drive from the church, but it felt like another world. The streets were unpaved dirt, the houses small and simple, some with broken roof tiles and walls in need of paint. Children played in the street with homemade balls. Stray dogs slept in the shade of trees. Ethan parked near the bridge and walked. People looked at him curiously, a well-dressed young man clearly out of place, but their gazes weren't hostile, just curious. He found Mr. Joe's bakery easily. It was a small shop with a simple display case full of golden loaves of bread and homemade pastries. The smell from inside made his stomach growl. "Looking for someone, young man?" asked a man in his 60s, sweeping the sidewalk outside the bakery. "I'm looking for a girl named Ellie. Brown hair, about 6 years old." "Oh, Ellie. Good girl, that one. She passed by about 2 hours ago. Bought some bread. She said her mother was worse today." Ethan's heart pounded. "Do you know where she lives?" "Of course. Everyone here knows everyone. Go down Main Street, turn left at the 3rd intersection. It's the little blue house at the end, really needs a fresh coat of paint. But be careful, young man. Monica, her mother, is in very bad shape." Ethan followed the directions, his chest tightening with each step. The houses got simpler as he moved away from Main Street. The 3rd left turn was a narrow side street with only 5 houses on each side. The little blue house was indeed at the end. The paint was peeling, and the tiny wooden gate sagged on a broken hinge. A small yard in front had a few flowers. Someone was trying to keep alive against all odds. That's when he saw her. Ellie sat on the sidewalk in front of the house, leaning against the wall. Beside her was a brown paper bag with a few loaves of bread. She wore the same outfit as yesterday, a faded pink shirt and an oversized denim skirt. But today she wasn't praying. She just sat there, staring into space, with an expression no child should ever have. Ethan approached slowly. When Ellie saw him, her eyes widened in surprise. "You, sir, the one from the church." "Hey, Ellie, do you remember me?" "Of course I do. You cried when you read my letter." Ethan crouched down to her level. "I thought a lot about what you said. I wanted to help your mother." Ellie's eyes filled with tears. "The lady at the hospital said they need money to admit her. A lot of money. But I only managed to buy this," she pointed to the bag of bread. "She hasn't eaten in 2 days. She's very weak." "Ellie, where is your mom right now?" "In there. She fell this morning and couldn't get up again. I tried to help, but I'm too little." Ethan's blood ran cold. "May I see her?" Ellie nodded and stood. The front door was open. No lock, just an old curtain separating the house from the street. The interior was even simpler than Ethan had imagined. Her tiny living room with a patched-up sofa, a small plastic table, and mismatched chairs. The walls were bare cinder block, and the floor was rough concrete. Yet everything was clean, arranged with care by someone who had very little but held on to it dearly. "She's over there," Ellie pointed to a corner of the room. Ethan looked and felt the world stop. A young woman, no older than 25, lay on a thin mattress on the floor. Her disheveled blonde hair clung to her sweaty face. Her skin was as pale as paper, her breathing labored. She wore an old nightgown and was covered by a tattered sheet. Monica was clearly very sick, very, very sick. "Mommy," Ellie knelt beside her. "The man from the church came to help us." Monica opened her eyes with great effort. They were the same brown as her daughter's, but lacked any shine, glazed with fever. "Ellie, don't bother people," she whispered hoarsely. "My name is Ethan," he said, crouching on her other side. "Your daughter is a very brave girl." Monica tried to sit up but had no strength. A violent cough took her over, and Ethan saw small drops of blood at her lips. The impulse was immediate and overwhelming. Ethan didn't think, didn't hesitate, didn't calculate consequences. He simply couldn't leave things as they were. "Ellie, I'm taking your mother to the hospital now." "But sir," Monica tried to protest. I can't pay." "Don't worry about that," Ethan said, carefully scooping Monica into his arms. She was as light as a wounded bird. "Ellie, come with me." The hospital was 20 minutes away from the community. Ethan drove as fast as he could, Monica unconscious in the back seat, Ellie holding her hand and whispering, "It will be okay, Mommy." The angel I prayed for has arrived. In the emergency room, everything happened quickly. Ethan gave his name at reception, and doctors, nurses, and a stretcher appeared. Monica was taken inside while he handled the paperwork. "Do you have insurance?" the receptionist asked. "Private." "I want a private room, the best doctors available." "Sir, you'll need a credit card authorization for—" "You won't," Ethan said, handing over a black card. "Do whatever is necessary. Money is no object." Ellie sat in a blue plastic chair, swinging her legs, when the doctors returned. "Severe pneumonia," the doctor explained. "Probably been going on for weeks. Another day or two more and—" He didn't finish the sentence. "Will she be okay?" Ellie asked, running to the doctor. "She will," he replied. "It will take some time, but with the right treatment, your mother will recover." That's when Ellie broke down. All those weeks of fear, the burden of responsibility no 6-year-old should have. Nights without sleep caring for her mother, desperate prayers, all of it came rushing out at once. "Is she going to die? Are you going to leave her there alone?" she cried, clutching Ethan's shirt. Ethan knelt and pulled her into his arms. Ellie was small enough to fit entirely in his embrace, trembling with equal parts relief and fear. "You're not alone anymore," he said, feeling something break and then rebuild inside his chest. "I promise." They spent the rest of the day at the hospital. Monica was admitted to the best available room overlooking the garden with all the necessary equipment. The doctors began treatment immediately. Strong antibiotics, IV fluids, oxygen. Ethan took care of everything. He talked to the doctors, signed forms, and made sure Monica got the best possible care. For the first time in 2 years, his money was serving something that truly mattered. Ellie stayed by her mother's side. Sitting in a chair next to the bed, she held Monica's hand and told her about her day. "Mummy, Mr. Ethan is so nice. He brought us to the hospital in a car. And you know what? The doctors said you will get better, that you just needed the right medicine." Monica was asleep, but Ethan was sure she heard every word. Late in the afternoon, a nurse brought dinner for Ellie, a plate of rice, beans, chicken, and vegetables. The girl's eyes lit up. "Can I eat all of this?" "Of course, sweetie," the nurse said with a smile. Ethan watched Ellie eat with an appetite that showed how many meals she had skipped in the past weeks. With every bite, she looked at her mother sleeping and whispered, "When you wake up, I'll share my food with you again." At 8 that evening, Monica woke up. She was more lucid, breathing easier. "Ellie," she called in a weak but clear voice. "Mommy, you're okay." "The doctor said you'll be fine." Monica looked around the room, clean, modern, with fresh flowers on the bedside table. Where are we?" "In the hospital, Mommy. Mr. Ethan brought us here." Monica searched for Ethan with her eyes. He sat in a chair in the corner, watching the reunion. I can't pay for this," she said, tears streaming down her face. "How you don't need to pay a thing," Ethan replied. "Your daughter taught me something important yesterday. Let me give back." Monica tried to speak, but no words came. She simply squeezed Ellie's hand and closed her eyes, relieved for the first time in weeks. Ethan stayed until Ellie fell asleep in the chair beside her mother's bed. A nurse brought a small blanket and covered the girl kindly. For the first time in 2 years, 3 months and 18 days, Ethan Marlowe felt alive. Not happy. He would always carry the pain of losing Rachel, but alive, with purpose. He looked at Ellie sleeping, one hand still touching her mother's, and felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Outside, it began to rain again, but this time, Ethan didn't see the rain as something sad. He saw it as something that cleanses, that renews, that prepares the ground for new things to grow. Tomorrow would be another day, and for the first time in a long time, he was eager to see what that day would bring. It was Monica's 4th day in the hospital. The doctors had been clear that morning. The pneumonia was responding well to treatment, but would require at least 2 more weeks of hospitalization. Cases like this don't resolve overnight, explained Dr. Martinez, the pulmonologist in charge. She's been sick for a long time before arriving here. Her body needs time to fully recover. Ethan had spent the last few days practically living at the hospital. He slept in the chair in the room, ate in the cafeteria downstairs, and worked on his laptop when Monica and Ellie were asleep. Margaret appeared twice a day with urgent documents, but the company functioned surprisingly well without him, a discovery that both surprised and, in some way, relieved him. Ellie hadn't left her mother's side for a moment. She slept curled up in the chair, took her baths in the bathroom attached to the room, and ate the meals Ethan ordered to be delivered. She talked endlessly to Monica, telling stories, singing songs she'd learned in class, drawing with colored pencils a kindly nurse had given her. But today, Monica looked noticeably better, sitting up in bed with ease, breathing comfortably, color returning to a face that had been pale for so long. "Ethan," she called when Ellie went to get water in the hallway. "I need to talk to you about something important." He came to her bedside. In the past days, he'd learned much about Monica Dawson. She was 24, working as a cleaner in 3 different houses to support her daughter. Her ex-husband had disappeared when Ellie was a baby, leaving only debts behind. Monica had no family. Her parents died when she was a teenager, and she grew up in shelters until she turned 18. "You saved our lives," she said, tears in her eyes, "not only by bringing me to the hospital, but by giving us hope when I thought we had none." "You don't need to thank me, Monica." "I do. And I know you have your own pain to deal with." "Ellie told me you lost your wife." Ethan nodded. In the past days, he'd told Ellie a bit about Rachel, how they met, what her smile was like, how she loved planting flowers in the garden. The girl listened with the understanding of someone who knows loss, even at her young age. "The doctor said I'll be here 2 more weeks, Monica continued, "and I'm very worried about Ellie. She can't stay in the hospital every night. It's no place for a child. She can stay as long as needed. No, Ethan, she needs routine, a proper bed, somewhere to play. She needs to go to school. She's already missed a week of classes." Ethan realized where Monica was going, but waited for her to speak. I wanted to ask you a very big favor, bigger than anything you've done for us so far." Monica took a deep breath. Could you take care of Ellie for these 2 weeks? Bring her to your home. I know it's a lot to ask. I know you barely knew us until a few days ago. I know you have your own life, your company." Her voice trembled. "But I have no one else in the world, Ethan. And she's attached to you in a way I've never seen. She talks about you all the time when she thinks I'm sleeping." Tears streamed down Monica's face. "I trust you. I don't know why, but I trust you completely. Maybe it's because Ellie prayed so hard for an angel, and you appeared exactly when we needed you. Maybe it's because I see in your eyes that you know what it's like to lose someone you love." Ethan felt something shift in his chest. For 2 years, he had run from any emotional responsibility. Now Monica was offering precisely that, the chance to care for someone, to matter in someone's life again. "Monica, I would be honored to take care of Ellie. Are you sure? She can be a handful. She's curious, asks a lot of questions, sometimes wakes up at night with nightmares." "I'm sure." Monica held his hands. "Thank you. I have no words to express my gratitude. You're giving me a chance to recover without worrying if my daughter is okay." Just then, Ellie ran back into the room. "Mommy, the nurse said you're much better today." "I am, sweetheart, and I have news for you." Ellie sat on the edge of the bed, her eyes wide with curiosity. "Mr. Ethan is going to take care of you for a few days while I finish getting better here in the hospital." "Really?" Ellie turned to Ethan. You're really going to take care of me? If you want me to, yes. Ellie jumped off the bed and ran to hug Ethan tightly. I do want you to. Can I see your house? Do you have pets? Do you have a garden? Can I help you cook? Monica laughed, the first genuine laugh Ethan had heard from her. Slow down, little one. One question at a time. Ethan's house was a 30-minute drive from the hospital. During the ride, Ellie didn't stop talking for a second. Is your house very big? Does it have a pool? Do you like cartoons? What's your favorite food? Do you know how to make pancakes? My mommy makes the best pancakes in the world, but she can teach you when she gets out of the hospital. Ethan answered every question patiently, smiling at the girl's endless energy. How long had it been since he heard so much life inside a car? How long since he truly smiled? When they arrived at the gate, Ellie fell silent for a few seconds. Wow, was all she could say. The mansion towered before them. 3 stories, well-manicured gardens, a fountain at the entrance, huge windows reflecting the afternoon sun. This is where you live? Yes. All alone in this whole house? Alone. Ellie processed that information while Ethan parked in the garage. Must be so quiet. It is. I don't like quiet. I prefer when there's the sound of people. Ethan turned off the engine and looked at her. Then you'll like it here. It's been a while since this house heard the sound of people. Ellie's reaction upon entering the house was everything Ethan hadn't expected. Instead of being impressed by the luxury, the expensive furniture, or the size of the rooms, she was fascinated by the small details. She ran to the living room window to look out at the lake. She discovered the echo in the foyer and started shouting, "Hello," to hear her voice come back. She found a piano in the music room and pressed a few keys, laughing at the sound. "Can you play?" she asked. "A little." Rachel was the real pianist. Could she teach me? The innocent question struck Ethan. She's not here anymore, remember? Oh, that's right, Ellie said matter-of-factly. But you can teach me what she taught you. So that way it's like she's still teaching through you. Was this Rachel's bedroom? Ellie asked as Ethan showed her upstairs. Yes, it was. Was she beautiful? Ethan pointed to a photo on the nightstand, Rachel smiling on the beach during their honeymoon. She was the most beautiful person I've ever known. Inside too. The question caught Ethan off guard. What do you mean? My mommy always says some people are only pretty on the outside, but real beauty comes from within. Was Rachel beautiful inside too? She was the kindest person I've ever met. Ellie nodded solemnly. That's why you're so sad. When you lose someone beautiful inside, it takes longer for the sadness to go away. Ethan showed Ellie the guest bedroom where she would stay. It was a large room with a double bed, a solid wood wardrobe, a desk, and a reading chair by the window. It's so big, Ellie said, looking around. My room at home is 3 times smaller. You don't like it? I do, it's just different. Can I put my drawings on the walls? Of course. Ellie opened the small backpack she had brought from the hospital. She pulled out a few crumpled drawings, all made during her days at the hospital. One of her mother in a hospital bed smiling, one of colorful flowers, and one that caught Ethan's eye. It was a simple drawing in colored pencil, 2 people holding hands in front of a house. One tall, one small. Who are these people? Ethan asked. It's us. I drew it when I was at the hospital. The nurse said drawing good things helps them come true. Ethan felt something tighten in his throat. Can I stick it on the fridge? My mommy always sticks my drawings on the fridge. Sure. They went down to the kitchen. It was modern, with a central island, stainless steel appliances and marble countertops. Ellie ran straight to the huge refrigerator and began taping her drawings to it with the adhesive tape Ethan found in a drawer. Suddenly, the cold, impersonal kitchen gained color and life. The child's drawings contrasted with the sophisticated environment in a way that was both funny and touching. Now it really looks like a home, Ellie said, satisfied, watching her work. A house without a kid's drawing on the fridge isn't a home, it's just a pretty place. Ethan looked at the refrigerator. In 2.5 years, he had never put anything on it except food. Now it was decorated with a 6-year-old's drawings and somehow it made more sense than all the expensive decor in the rest of the house. At dinner time, Ethan didn't know what to cook. His diet for the past 2 years had basically consisted of takeout or simple sandwiches. He hadn't prepared a proper meal since Rachel died. "Can you cook?" he asked, Ellie sitting on the kitchen counter observing him open and close cabinets. "Not much. I know how to make scrambled eggs. My mommy taught me." "Want me to teach you?" Ethan laughed, the first genuine laugh he'd had in a long time. "I think that would be a good idea." Ellie took over the kitchen with the seriousness of a professional chef. She taught Ethan how to crack eggs without getting shells in the pan, how to stir at the right speed, and how to add a little milk to make them creamier. "The key is not to rush," she explained, standing on a chair to reach the stove. "Food made in a hurry doesn't taste good. You have to make it with love." They ate at the kitchen table, scrambled eggs, toast, and orange juice. The meal was simple, but Ethan couldn't remember a more delicious bite. "Do you live alone?" Ellie asked, stirring her eggs with a fork. "Yes, since Rachel passed away." "Yes. You had a wife?" Ethan stopped chewing. The question, asked with the innocence of a child, hit him hard. "I did. She meant everything to me." Ellie nodded with understanding. "My mommy means everything to me, too." The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable. It was a silence of mutual understanding. Two people who knew what it meant to love someone more than life itself. Two people who knew the fear of losing that someone. Ethan looked at Ellie, messy hair, a shirt stained with egg, speaking about her mother with the same love he felt for Rachel, and felt something ignite in his chest. It wasn't happiness, not yet, but it was something, a connection, a purpose, a reason to care again. "Thank you for taking care of me," Ellie said quietly, breaking his thoughts. "Thank you for letting me take care of you." She smiled, and in that smile, Ethan saw a future different from what he had imagined for himself. Not a future without pain. He would always carry Rachel's absence, but a future where that pain could coexist with other things. Good things, things worth living for. Outside, night had fallen. Ethan Marlowe's big, silent house was no longer silent. It was filled with questions, laughter, drawings on the fridge, and scrambled eggs made by small hands. It was full of life again, and for the first time in 2 years, 3 months and 21 days, it felt not only right, but necessary. It was almost 9 o'clock when Ellie began to yawn. They had spent the rest of the afternoon exploring the house. Ellie discovered the library and was fascinated by so many books on shelves that reached the ceiling. She found Ethan's office and pretended to work at a huge desk, signing important papers with the seriousness of an executive. She visited every room like it was an adventure, filling empty spaces with her natural curiosity and spontaneous laughter echoing through the silent halls. Now, in the guest bedroom, she had taken a bath in the enormous bathtub, a splash-filled adventure that made her laugh because it felt like a little pool just for me, and put on the pink pajamas she'd brought in her backpack. "This room is so big," she said, sitting on the edge of the bed, looking around with a mixture of awe and apprehension. "It's even scary to sleep alone in a place this big." "Would you like me to leave the hallway light on?" Ethan asked, arranging the pillows behind her. "You can, but before that—" She hesitated, nervously playing with the hem of her pajamas. "Before I sleep, I always pray with my mummy. Could you pray with me tonight?" The request caught Ethan completely off guard. Pray. How long had it been since he'd prayed? 2 years. More. The last time had been at the hospital, in Rachel's final days, clinging to any hope or miracle that might save her. When all prayers seemed to hit the ceiling and come back without answer, echoing emptily in a cruel silence that felt like mockery of his faith. I don't know if I remember how," he said honestly. "It's easy," Ellie replied with the casual ease only children have when speaking about sacred things. "You just talk to God like he's a friend who loves you a lot. My mommy says he likes it more when you talk from the heart instead of using fancy words." Ethan looked at that little girl who had lost so much, suffered so much, and still held a faith so simple and pure. How did she manage? How did she still believe that someone was listening after all those nights of fear and uncertainty, after watching her mother waste away day after day. "Please," she asked, reaching her small hand toward him. "I get scared sleeping without praying, and maybe God listens better when more people pray together." Ethan hesitated. For 2 years, he had refused any form of faith, hope, or connection to something greater. Religion had become an empty word after he lost Rachel. God became a distant concept that didn't answer when most needed, allowing good people to die while bad ones kept living. But looking at Ellie, he saw something different. It wasn't about God or religion. It was about her. It was about not letting a 6-year-old girl feel alone on her first night in a strange house. It was about pure, simple love without theological complications. "All right," he finally said. Ellie smiled, and in that smile was a light that seemed to brighten the entire room, driving away the shadows in the corners. She knelt beside the bed on the soft rug. Ethan knelt next to her, feeling his knees protest after so long without such a movement. "Shall we start?" Ellie whispered, closing her eyes and folding her small hands in a natural way as if breathing. Ethan closed his eyes and tried to find words. For 2 years, he had held so much anger, pain, and silence inside his chest. How to turn that into a prayer, how to find hope in so much emptiness, how to speak to a God who had allowed Rachel to die. I don't know what to say," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "Say whatever's in your heart," Ellie said softly, not opening her eyes. Ethan took a deep breath, and for the first time in a long while, he let words flow from a place he had kept locked away, protected by tall walls of pain and isolation. "God, if you're there, if you're listening," he began, his voice shaky and uncertain. "I don't know how to do this anymore. It's been so long since I talked to you, and honestly, I was angry, very angry with you." Ellie held his hand, as if she instinctively knew he needed strength to continue, that the words were costing him so much to say. "But today, there's a little girl next to me who taught me some things are more important than anger, that some people are more important than the pain we carry around like a trophy." The words began to flow more easily, as if a dam had burst after years of pent-up pressure. "Please take care of Monica, Lord. Make her well soon. Ellie needs her more than anything in the world. And take care of Ellie too. She's brave. Braver than any adult I know, but she's still just a child. She shouldn't have to carry so much worry on her small shoulders." Ethan paused, feeling something shift in his chest. It wasn't faith exactly. It was something deeper. It was pure love, without expectations, without bargaining, without conditions. "And if Rachel is there with you, tell her I'm trying, that I'm trying to live again, not just exist, like she always wanted me to." Ellie squeezed his hand tighter, a small gesture of support that meant more than any comforting words. "Now it's your turn, little one," Ethan whispered. "Thank you, God, for sending Ethan to take care of us," Ellie began with the simplicity only children have when speaking about sacred things. "Thank you for making my mommy better. Thank you for this big, beautiful house, and for the yummy food, and for having someone who doesn't get mad when I ask too many questions." She paused and opened one eye to look at Ethan, as if she wanted to make sure he was hearing every word. "And please, help Ethan to not be so sad anymore. I know he misses Rachel, but I think she doesn't want him crying every day. Take care of them both, her in heaven and him here with me." "Amen," they said together, their voices blending in the sacred silence of the room. They stayed silent for a few moments, still kneeling side by side. Ethan felt different. Not healed, not whole, but less empty. As if something hardened inside him had softened a bit, letting light in through the crack. "Thank you," Ellie said, standing up and climbing into bed, still sleepy. Ethan tucked her in under the blanket and, on a natural impulse that surprised him, kissed her gently on the forehead, a gesture so spontaneous and fatherly that it caught him off guard. "Good night, little one." "Good night, Ethan. Dream sweet dreams." Ethan was descending the stairs when he remembered the blanket. The night was colder than expected, and the guest room sometimes got chilly because of the large windows overlooking the lake. Ellie was small and came from a simple home. She was probably used to smaller, cozier rooms where heat stayed where it belonged. He remembered that Rachel kept extra blankets in her office closet, the office he hadn't entered in 2 years, 3 months, and 22 days, the place that had become an untouched sanctuary, a museum of the life they had shared. He went back up, past Ellie's room, already sound asleep, breathing softly like only children do after a day full of discoveries, and stopped in front of Rachel's office door. The door had been closed since the day she died. Ethan had locked it and never reopened it. He couldn't. It was the place where she spent her mornings working on her charity projects, planning fundraising events, writing loving letters to distant friends. Now, for the first time in over 2 years, he turned the doorknob with trembling hands. The air was heavy, smelling musty, filled with time-frozen memories. The curtains were drawn, casting an eternal half-light that seemed to suspend the room in a time warp. Ethan flipped on the light and for a moment leaned against the wall, overcome by an overwhelming wave of conflicting emotions. Everything was exactly as Rachel had left it. The desk was organized with military precision, with a coffee mug still in place from the last morning she sat there. The sunflower mug he'd given her on their first wedding anniversary. Papers were stacked with obsessive care. Pens were arranged in the handcrafted holder they bought together on a romantic trip to Tuscany. It was as if she could walk in any moment and resume her work, smiling in that way that made the world feel brighter and full of possibilities. Ethan walked to the closet, trying to focus only on finding a blanket. He opened the doors and started looking through the meticulously organized shelves. That's when he saw the boxes. 3 brown cardboard boxes, all labeled in Rachel's careful handwriting. "For Ethan, when you're ready." He had never seen these boxes before. When had she prepared them? During sleepless nights when her pain was too intense to sleep. And why had she never mentioned them? The first box was right where the blankets should have been. With trembling hands, Ethan picked it up. It was surprisingly light, but he could feel it contained important things, objects carrying heavy meaning. He placed it gently on Rachel's desk and stared at it for long minutes, as if it were an emotional bomb that could shatter the fragile balance he'd built. "When you're ready." The words echoed in his mind like a mantra. Would he be ready now? After more than 2 years avoiding anything that deeply connected him to Rachel, after all that time running from his memories, he took a deep breath and opened the box with reverent care. On top was a cream envelope with his name written by hand. Rachel's handwriting, the delicate, elegant letters he knew like the back of his hand, the writing he'd seen on birthday cards, grocery lists, loving notes left on the fridge as little surprises. His hands trembled violently as he took the envelope. Inside it he could feel some sheets of paper. His heart raced so much that he had to sit down in Rachel's chair, taking deep breaths to calm himself and try to control the avalanche of emotions. He opened the envelope slowly, as if handling something sacred and extremely fragile. The letter was written in the same delicate handwriting, on stationery embossed with their initials, E, M, and R, M. She had planned every detail, every moment of this future encounter, knowing that one day he would need these words. Ethan began to read, and it was as if Rachel's voice came back to life, whispering in his ear with that affectionate tone that always calmed him. "My love, if you're reading this, it means I'm not here anymore. It wasn't easy. The last years were hard, the treatments, the pain, the exhaustion. But I was happy anyway, because you were with me, because you took care of me with love until the end. I know your grief will be deep. I know your silence will weigh heavily. But please, don't live trapped in it. You are a good, generous man, someone who makes a difference. I knew that heart of yours, and I loved every part of it. I hope, with all my soul, that one day you find a way to move on and allow yourself to live again. You deserve it. With all my love, Rachel." Tears came without warning, like a storm after a prolonged drought. Ethan cried as he hadn't since the funeral, a deep cry of relief and pain mixed, of gratitude and overwhelming longing. It was as if Rachel was there in the office, speaking to him one more time, offering the forgiveness and comfort he so desperately needed, but didn't know how to ask for. She knew. She knew he would shut down, that he would get lost in his grief, that he would punish himself with survivor's guilt. And even so, even knowing she was dying, she thought to leave something to help him find his way back to life. He wiped his eyes with the back of his hand and refocused on the box. Beneath the envelope was a brown leather-bound notebook, worn from constant use. On the cover, in Rachel's loving handwriting, Project House of Hope. Ethan opened the notebook and started to read. Page after page, Rachel had detailed an ambitious, comprehensive social project. A place for single mothers and their children to rebuild their lives with dignity. Not just a temporary shelter, but a full center offering transitional housing, job training, childcare, psychological support, legal guidance, and comprehensive medical care. Many women find themselves in desperate situations, she had written on the first page with her careful handwriting. Alone, without resources, without hope, but every person deserves a second chance. Every child deserves to see their mother with dignity. Rachel had thought of absolutely everything: ideal location, necessary physical structure, strategic partnerships with businesses to provide jobs, agreements with schools for the children. There were detailed preliminary budgets, architectural plans of what the space would look like, even specific names of professionals who could help implement it. Ethan read each page as if hearing her voice again. He could imagine her sitting in that same chair, planning how to help others even while battling her own illness. It was so typical of Rachel, always thinking of others, always wanting to make a difference in the world, even while fighting her own battle. On the last page of the notebook, a final note was written in a slightly more shaky handwriting. Ethan, I know you have the resources and influence to make this a reality. But more importantly, you have the heart to understand why it matters. One day, when you're ready, I hope you'll consider bringing this dream to life, not for me, but for the women and children who need a chance. With eternal love and hope, Rachel. Ethan closed the notebook and sat in silence for long minutes. It was as if all the pieces of a complex puzzle were coming together perfectly. The encounter with Ellie at the church, Monica in the hospital, the deep connection he felt with that small family. Rachel had planted a seed 2 years ago, and now Ethan was beginning to understand what it was meant to become. Something awakened inside him, a feeling he hadn't felt in a long time. True purpose, not just a desire to help Monica and Ellie, but something larger, more encompassing. A vision of how he could honor Rachel's memory while giving deep meaning to his own life. A plan began to form in his mind, still vague, still uncertain, but real and pulsing. He could see the project taking shape. Modern, welcoming facilities, the families he would help, the impact on the entire community. But he was still unsure. It was a huge, ambitious project that would demand radical changes in his life. After 2 years hiding from the world, would he truly be ready for something so large and challenging? He looked around Rachel's office, feeling her presence in a way he hadn't in years. Not a ghostly presence, but the comforting sense that the love she left behind was still alive, still guiding his steps, even in her physical absence. He remembered the prayer he'd said with Ellie just minutes before. If Rachel is there with you, and tell her that I'm trying to live again, not just exist. Maybe that was the answer he had been seeking for so long. Ethan picked up the notebook, the letter, and carefully placed everything back in the box. He found a soft, warm blanket at the bottom of the closet and carried it upstairs to Ellie's room. She slept soundly, a small, serene smile on her face. He tucked her in gently and watched for a few moments, a little girl who had appeared in his life as an unexpected gift, a chance to reconnect with what truly mattered. He went back to his own bedroom, but sleep eluded him. He stayed awake late into the night, thinking about Rachel's detailed project, about Monica and Ellie, about the future full of possibilities he was beginning to envision. For the first time in over 2 years, tomorrow seemed full of hope and true purpose. It was Saturday morning when Ethan woke to the sound of laughter coming from the kitchen. Ellie was sitting on the counter, making pancakes with the same seriousness as always. In recent days, she had become the official chef of the house, at least for breakfast. Ethan came down in his pajamas and found the table set with care. Plates, forks, neatly folded napkins, and a small vase with a flower she had picked from the garden. "Good morning," she shouted, jumping off the stool. "I made special pancakes today." "What makes them special?" "They're heart-shaped. Look." Indeed, the pancakes were roughly heart-shaped. Some were more lopsided than others, but the effort was clear. They're perfect, Ethan said, sitting down at the table. As they ate, Ellie swung her legs on the chair and talked about everything under the sun. She had an incredible ability to find topics, from the birds that came to drink water at the fountain in the garden to a story she'd invented about a princess who saved dragons instead of being rescued by them. Ethan, she said, stopping mid-bite. Can I ask you something? Of course. Have you ever been to an amusement park? The question caught him off guard. An amusement park? He'd been to one, but it felt like a lifetime ago. Maybe as a child, with Rachel, a few times when they were dating. Yes, I have. Why? I've never been. Ellie lowered her head. My mommy always said one day we'd go see you when we had money to spend on fun stuff, but we never did. Ethan felt something tighten in his chest. A 6-year-old girl who had never been to an amusement park, never ridden a Ferris wheel, never had cotton candy, never won a stuffed animal at a game booth. Would you like to go today? He asked before thinking it through. Ellie's eyes widened. Really? Can I really go? Of course. It's Saturday. We have the whole day. Ellie jumped off her chair and ran to hug him so tightly he almost fell over. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'll grab my backpack. The park was 40 minutes from town. During the drive, Ellie didn't take a single break from talking. She asked about every ride, wanted to know if they were scary, if she was tall enough for all of them, if giant teddy bears really existed as prizes. My mommy always said amusement parks are magical places, she said, nose pressed against the car window, that they're where dreams come true for a day. When they arrived in the parking lot, Ellie fell silent for a few moments, taking in the colorful entrance of the park. She could hear music, excited screams, and the hum of rides in operation. It's bigger than I imagined, she whispered, and we haven't even gone in yet. Ethan smiled. They bought tickets and passed through the turnstiles. Ellie held his hand tightly, as if to make sure it wasn't all a dream. The park was crowded, families walking with kids running ahead, groups of teenagers, couples holding hands. The smell of popcorn, cotton candy, and hamburgers filled the air. Upbeat music played through speakers, mixed with laughter and chatter. Where should we start? Ethan asked. Ellie looked around, eyes glittering with possibilities. How about that one? She pointed to the Ferris wheel towering in the center of the park. The Ferris wheel was enormous. From the top, one could probably see the entire town. Ethan admitted to himself he was a bit afraid of heights, but seeing the excitement on Ellie's face, he said nothing. They got in line. Ellie watched everything intently, the colorful cabins ascending and descending slowly, people waving from above, the view unfolding as the wheel turned. It won't be dangerous, right? She asked as they neared their cabin. No, it's very safe, Ethan replied, silently hoping he was right. They climbed into the blue cabin, and the attendant closed the door. Ellie gripped the seat as they began to rise. Oh my God, we're flying! As they ascended, the view became more breathtaking. The town spread out below like a miniature model. Ellie pressed her nose to the glass, pointing at everything she saw. Look, Ethan, can we see our house from here? That big mansion there must be yours. I think it's that one over there, he said, chuckling at her excitement. When they reached the top, the cabin paused for a few moments. Ellie fell silent, drinking in the view. It's beautiful, she whispered. It's like we're giants and the world is small. Ethan looked at her instead of the scenery. Her face was aglow with pure joy. When was the last time he saw someone that genuinely happy over something so simple? After the Ferris wheel, they went to the bumper cars. Ellie laughed so hard she got hiccups. Then they tried the haunted house, where she clutched Ethan's arm, pretending to be scared but actually loving the thrill. Can I have ice cream now? She asked as they exited. Sure. They went to the park's ice cream stand. Ellie took 10 minutes to decide from all the flavors on offer. She finally chose a triple scoop, chocolate, strawberry, and vanilla, with chocolate syrup and colorful sprinkles. It's the biggest ice cream of my life, she said, trying to balance the cone. They sat on a bench to eat. Ellie savored the ice cream slowly, as if she wanted it to last forever. Ethan, she said, licking her fingers. Thank you for bringing me here. Thank you, I'm having fun too. It was true. He hadn't had real fun in years, Seeing everything through Ellie's eyes made things seem new and magical again. After the ice cream, they went to the game booths. Ellie stopped in front of one where the prize was a giant teddy bear. "It's so big," she sighed. The game was to knock down bottles with a ball. Ethan paid and threw. He missed all 3 attempts. "Can I try?" Ellie asked. The booth attendant smiled and handed her the balls. Ellie stuck out her tongue in concentration. The first ball whizzed wide, the second too. On the third, she knocked down a bottle at the end. "That's not enough to win the giant bear," the attendant said, "but you can pick a smaller prize." Ellie chose a small blue teddy bear that fit perfectly in her arms. "It's perfect," she said, hugging the little bear. "I'll call him Friend." Ethan paid for 3 more attempts, and 3 more, and 3 more. On the 12th attempt, he knocked down all the bottles. "The giant bear is yours," the attendant shouted. Ellie stood wide-eyed as Ethan handed her the enormous teddy. It was almost as tall as she was, light brown and incredibly plush. "Ethan, it's really huge. How will I carry it?" "We'll figure it out." They walked through the park, Ellie dragging the giant bear and holding the small one, drawing amused looks from passers-by. They rode a small roller coaster, the only one she was tall enough for, played at the fishing game and bought popcorn. When the sun began to set, they sat on a bench near the Ferris wheel to rest. Ellie held both bears in her lap, a box of popcorn in her mouth, radiating happiness as bright as light. "Ethan," she said, suddenly serious. "What is it?" "This is the best day of my life." The words, spoken with such sincerity, brought tears to Ethan's eyes. "It's the best I've had in a long time, too," he replied, his voice thick. Ellie looked up at him with those huge brown eyes. "Really? Really?" She smiled and snuggled next to him on the bench, hugging both bears. "When my mommy gets out of the hospital, can I bring her here too?" "Of course, we will bring her, yes. And will we ride the Ferris wheel together?" "We will." "And will she get a bear too?" "She will get the biggest bear there is." Ellie laughed and went back to eating popcorn. They stayed there until it was dark, watching the park lights turn on one by one. Ellie eventually fell asleep, leaning against Ethan's shoulder, still clutching the bears. Ethan looked at her sleeping and felt something he hadn't felt in years, pure gratitude. Gratitude for that moment, for that child, for the chance to feel simple, true joy again. When it was time to leave, he carried Ellie, still asleep, to the car, both bears tucked under his arms. On the drive home, as she slept in the back seat clutching the small bear, Ethan smiled. It had indeed been the best day he'd had in a long time, and for the first time in years, he looked forward to the next day. The phone rang at 8 on a Monday morning that promised to be unlike any other. "Mr. Marlowe, this is Dr. Martinez from Community Hospital. I have good news about Monica Dawson." Ethan sat up in bed, instantly alert. Beside him, Ellie was still asleep, clutching the small bear she'd won at the park 3 days ago. The giant bear took up almost half the bed at its foot. "She's well." "Better than well. Yesterday's tests showed a complete recovery. The pneumonia is gone, her lungs are clear, all vitals normal. We can discharge her today." Ethan closed his eyes and sighed with relief. 2.5 weeks in the hospital, 2.5 weeks of uncertainty, treatments, and waiting. Finally, it was over. "What time can I pick her up?" "After 2 in the afternoon. I'll have all the paperwork and prescriptions ready." Ethan hung up and looked at Ellie, stirring in her sleep. "Good morning, little one." "Good morning," she said, stretching. "I have very good news for you." Ellie sat up instantly, wide awake. "Mommy is coming home from the hospital today." For a moment, Ellie froze, as if she couldn't process the information. Then a huge smile spread across her face. "Really? My mommy is healed?" "Really?" "We'll pick her up at 2. Ellie jumped out of bed and began jumping around, shouting with joy. The small bear flew through the air, and she ran to hug Ethan with all her might. Thank you. I knew she'd be okay. I just knew it." The rest of the morning was a flurry of organized chaos. Ellie insisted on preparing everything to welcome her mother home. She tidied up the room where she'd slept, organized her drawings, and chose which bear to give to Monica. "She needs a friend too," she explained, holding the small bear. "Friend will take care of her when I'm not around." Ethan watched her with a smile. Ellie's energy was contagious. 2 weeks living with her had changed his life as much as his presence had changed theirs. At 1:30 they were on the road to the hospital. Ellie couldn't sit still in the back seat, sometimes checking that her bear was perfectly positioned, sometimes asking if her mother still remembered her. She remembers, of course. Mothers never forget their children. And do you think she'll like the house and the drawings on the fridge? And the pancakes I learned to make? She'll love everything. They arrived at the hospital 15 minutes early. Ethan knew the way by heart. He'd walked these corridors dozens of times in recent weeks. But today was different. Today they weren't visiting someone who was sick. Today they were bringing someone home healthy. Monica sat on the edge of her bed, wearing the same outfit she had on the day of admission. Now slightly too large on her thinner frame. She had her hair done, makeup on, and a smile on her face that hadn't appeared in weeks. "Mommy!" Ellie ran and threw herself into Monica's arms. The reunion was so intense that Ethan felt tears welling in his eyes. Mother and daughter hugged as if they hadn't been together for years, whispering words of love, laughing and crying at the same time. "My daughter, you've grown so much. It feels like an eternity," Monica said, kissing Ellie's face all over. "Mommy, I took care of everything. I made pancakes. I put drawings on the fridge. I won 2 bears at the park." "At the park? You went to an amusement park?" "Mr. Ethan took me. It was the best day of my life." Monica looked at Ethan over Ellie's head. There were tears in her eyes, but also deep gratitude that needed no words. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything." Ethan simply nodded. There was nothing to thank. Those 2 weeks with Ellie had changed his life as much as his actions had changed theirs. "This is Friend," Ellie said, handing the small bear to Monica. "He will take care of you when I'm not close by." Monica held the bear and hugged her daughter even tighter. "He's perfect. Thank you, my love." Dr. Martinez appeared with a folder of papers, all set for discharge. "Monica, you're officially healthy. But remember, rest for 2 more weeks at home, take all medications as prescribed, and come back in 1 month for a follow-up." "Doctor," Monica said, "I don't know how to thank you. If it weren't for Mr. Marlowe—" "It was my pleasure to care for you both," the doctor smiled. "And Monica, take good care of that special girl. She never left your side for a moment during her stay." The drive home was a celebration. Ellie showed Monica everything along the way. The places they'd visited, the shops where they bought things, the park where they had so much fun. Monica listened intently, asking questions, smiling at her daughter's discoveries. "And now, Mommy? Are we going back to our house?" Ellie asked when they parked at the mansion. Monica looked at Ethan. It was a question neither of them had asked, but it hovered in the air. "Well," Ethan said, "you can stay here as long as you want. There's plenty of space, Giz, and I've kind of gotten used to the company." "Ethan, you've done more than enough. We can't impose—" "You're not imposing. You're family." The word slipped out before he could think. Family. That was what they had become for him. That was what he had become for them. "May we, Mommy? Please. I love it here so much," Ellie pleaded. Monica looked at her daughter, then at Ethan, then at the house where her daughter had found safety and love. "If you're sure—" "I'm absolutely sure." They entered the house together. Monica was impressed by everything, the size, the beauty, but most of all by the drawings Ellie had put around the fridge. "You've turned this house into a home," she told her daughter. "It was Mr. Ethan's idea. He said a house without a child's drawing on the fridge isn't a home. It's just a pretty place." Monica smiled at Ethan. "He's right." They spent the rest of the afternoon together. Monica rested on the sofa, while Ellie told every detail of the last 2 weeks. Ethan made coffee, prepared snacks, and watched this family reunite. He felt at peace. Deep, complete peace. Not the empty peace he had felt these past 2 years, but a peace full of purpose, love, and a future. Later, when Monica and Ellie were asleep, Ethan went up to Rachel's office. He still came there sometimes, not to cry, but to connect with the good memories. He picked up her photo on the desk, Rachel smiling on the beach during their honeymoon. "Thank you," he whispered, "for teaching me that love doesn't end, for giving me the chance to be a father without being a father, to have a family without forgetting you." He returned the photo and went downstairs. Monica was in the living room, reading. Ellie slept on the sofa. "I'll take her to bed," Ethan said. "We'll both take her," Monica replied. They carried Ellie together up to her room. She woke for a moment. "Good night, Mommy. Good night, Ethan." "Good night, my love," Monica said, kissing her forehead. "Good night, little one," Ethan repeated. "Thank you for today." "All our days are perfect," Ethan replied, and it was true. Perfect because they were lived with love, with purpose, with a family that had found each other when they needed it most. They went downstairs together. Monica went to her room, Ethan to his. But before sleeping, he stood by the window looking at the garden Rachel had planted. The flowers were blooming once again. Ethan was part of a family. And finally, part of real life. True love doesn't die, it transforms. And sometimes, it is reborn in the hands of those who most need care. 6 months later, autumn had arrived with its golden leaves and crisp mornings. The town looked different, but not as much as the lives of the 3 people whose destinies had intertwined in that small church. Ellie walked alone down the street, leading to St. Mary's Church. She was now 7 years old. She had celebrated her birthday the previous week with an unforgettable party, her steps steadier, more confident. She wore a new blue dress and shoes without holes. In her arms, she carried the small bear she won at the park on that magical day. The church looked exactly the same as 6 months ago. The same brick walls, the same stained glass windows, the same peace emanating from the place. But for Ellie, everything held a completely different meaning now. She pushed open the heavy door and entered. The interior was empty, bathed in soft morning light. Her footsteps echoed as she walked down the center aisle. She stopped in exactly the same spot where she had stood 6 months before. The same pew, same side, same distance from the altar. It was as if she could see herself, a little, frightened girl kneeling there with a crumpled note in her hands. Ellie climbed onto the pew and knelt in the same place where she had prayed months ago. She placed the small bear beside her and folded her hands. But this time, there was no desperation in her voice. There was pure gratitude. "Hi, God," she began softly, as if talking to a dear friend. "It's me again, Ellie." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "Remember that time I came here crying, begging you to save my mommy? I was so scared. I thought she was going to leave me alone. But you sent an angel to us." A smile appeared on her face. "Thank you, God, for bringing Ethan into our lives. We were never alone again." The words came from her heart, carrying deep emotion. "My mommy is okay now. She works doing what she loves, helping other moms who need support. And I have a real family now. Ethan isn't my father, but he takes care of us like he is." Ellie opened her eyes and looked at the altar. "Thank you for teaching me that sometimes prayers get answered in ways we don't expect. I asked to save my mommy, and you didn't just save her. You saved all 3 of us." She picked up the bear and stood. "Amen." Outside the church, Ethan and Monica leaned against the car, waiting. They had let Ellie go in alone because she had asked. "I need to say thank you," she said earnestly. "She's taking a while," Monica commented. "She needs her time," Ethan replied. "That place is special to her." "It's special to all of us," Monica smiled. In the past 6 months, many things had changed. Monica had fully recovered and now worked as coordinator of the House of Hope. Ellie was enrolled in a wonderful school, and he had discovered that life could be good again. The church door opened, and Ellie emerged, holding the small bear. She walked toward them with that radiance in her eyes that had become her trademark. "Ready?" Monica asked. "Ready," Ellie replied, running to hold both of their hands. They walked together the 3 blocks from the church to the House of Hope. It was a walk they often made. Ellie liked to show other children the special places in her life. The House of Hope building stood before them, modern and welcoming. Glass and brick walls, well-kept gardens, a playground where children played. A discreet sign at the entrance read, "House of Hope, a new beginning for every family." 6 months of intense work had transformed Rachel's notebook project into a tangible reality. Ethan had purchased land in the heart of town, hired top architects, and mobilized his network of contacts. But more than that, he'd put his heart into every detail. The House of Hope wasn't just a shelter. It was a comprehensive center that offered temporary housing for up to 20 families, daycare for the children, job training courses for mothers, psychological support, and partnerships with local businesses providing employment opportunities. "Look, there are new kids here today." Ellie pointed to the playground. "They arrived yesterday," Monica explained. "A mum with 3 children." Ethan felt that familiar pang in his chest. Each new family that arrived at the House of Hope was a victory, but also a reminder of how many people still needed help. They entered the building. The lobby was bright and spacious, decorated with drawings made by the children living there. One entire wall was dedicated to Ellie's artwork. She had become an unofficial kind of sponsor for the place. Mr. Marlowe, a woman, approached. It was Carla, one of the first beneficiaries. "I got the job at the accounting firm." "Carla, that's wonderful news," Ethan smiled. This was what Rachel had dreamed of, not just providing shelter, but giving hope, giving people the chance to dream again. They passed through the community kitchen, where some mothers were preparing lunch together, through the library, where children did homework, through the sewing room, where women learned a trade. "Can I go play with the children?" Ellie asked. "Of course, a little one." Ellie ran to join a group of kids. Naturally, she took on the role of the big sister, helping the smaller ones, organizing games. Ethan and Monica watched her. "She has a gift," Monica said. "She can make any child feel at home." "I think she learned that out of necessity," Ethan replied. "She knows what it's like to feel alone. None of us feel alone now." It was true. In the last 6 months, the 3 of them had become a family in a way Ethan had never imagined possible. It wasn't the family he had planned with Rachel, but it was the family life had given him. "Do you think Rachel would be proud?" Monica asked. Ethan looked around the House of Hope. He saw families rebuilding, children playing safely, mothers regaining dignity. "I think she would be more than proud," he said. "I think she would be happy." "And you? Are you happy?" Ethan looked at Ellie playing, then at Monica, then at everything they had built together. "I am. For the first time in a long time, I'm truly happy." Later, as the sun began to set, the 3 returned home. Ellie told them about the new children. Monica spoke about next week's projects. Ethan listened with a smile on his face. That night, after Ellie fell asleep clutching her 2 bears, Ethan went up to Rachel's office. He still went there sometimes, not to cry, but to connect with good memories. He picked up her photo on the desk, Rachel smiling on the beach during their honeymoon. "Thank you," he whispered, "for teaching me that love doesn't end, for giving me the chance to be a father without being a father, to have a family without having to forget you." He put the photo away and went down. Monica was in the living room, reading. Ellie slept on the sofa. "I'll take her to bed," Ethan said. "We'll both take her," Monica replied. They carried Ellie together to her bedroom. She woke for a moment. "Good night, Mommy." "Good night, Ethan." "Good night, my love," Monica said, kissing her forehead. "Good night, little one," Ethan repeated. "Thank you for today." "All our days are perfect," Ethan replied. And it was true, perfect, because they were lived with love, with purpose, with a family that had found each other when they needed it most. They went downstairs together. Monica went to her room, Ethan to his. But before sleeping, he stayed by the window looking out at the garden Rachel had planted. The flowers were blooming again. Ethan was part of a family, and finally, part of a real life. True love doesn't die, it transforms. And sometimes it is reborn in the hands of those who most need care. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next ones. Leave a like, because it helps this story get recommended to more people. See you in the next story.